So, welcome to the first video of the first peoples of Kentucky. Okay, so I got this book here. It's called Weird Kentucky, and in fact, I think it should supplement or replace the New History, Harrison and Clotter's New History of Kentucky, which is like 1997. So it's it's over what 17 years old. So we need a new history of Kentucky. Weird Kentucky. The great thing about this book, I'm going to read basically the first chapter, Ancient Mysteries. So who are the first people of Kentucky? Who are the first people in Kentucky, right? So there's lots of different distinctions and lots of things, theories that people have. The idea used to be that the Asians came over on the Beringer Strait, the land bridge, the water rescinded, it froze, and they walked over a land bridge or an ice bridge or something. I don't know. But they walked over Siberia into Alaska, so they actually came from Africa, walked through Asia, across the land bridge. That's the prominent theory, but there's more theories out there. There's boats, there's a lot of a concentration of Native Americans in South America. How they get down there, they're distinct from the rest of the continent. Clovis points. There are arrowheads in the American continents, but there are no arrowheads in Siberia. So what's up with that distinction? How come in America, in the American continents, they was able to figure out, how to carve a rock and put it onto a stick and able to use as a weapon to hunt big game animals, such as the mastodon and the woolly mammoth. So Weird Kentucky, it not only goes through the ancient mysteries, it's Weird Kentucky. So they kind of cherry picked a lot of these things, but there's favorable people and legendary places. This is the table of contents. Unexplained phenomena, bizarre beasts, local heroes and villains, personalized properties, roadside oddities, ghost of Kentucky, cemetery safari, abandoned in Kentucky. So there's these abandoned buildings, which are really creepy and odd looking. There's ancient mysteries, which is the only chapter I'm going to get into. Buy this book. Get into this book. Support Weird Kentucky. You should, if you teach Kentucky history, I'm basically going to kind of fuck up your class because I'm going to teach a true version of Kentucky history. This is made sort of in jest, not in jest, it's very serious, but mocking the idea that Kentuckians don't know who they are, they don't know their history, they have a lack of civics. There's a lot of things that the educational system doesn't cover. Okay. So, Weird Kentucky, they speculate on who were the first peoples. The reason why I asked who the first peoples is because there was actually some theories that said white people had actually established civilizations before the Native Americans did. And I think that's ridiculous. And also, how many Native Americans can you name that came out of Kentucky? There's supposedly it was just a hunting ground, but that's bullshit. There's a lot of permanent settlements, right? There's a Skippakittiki. There is Awanee, which is another Shawnee village at Irvine, Kentucky. So you had Awanee, you had a Skippakittiki. So you had several permanent, there's like about 80 different towns or cities for the Cherokee in the Appalachian Mountains, the Yuchi, Delaware. There's a lot of Native Americans that was in Kentucky before white people got there. But okay, let's get into ancient mysteries. Most of us were told in school that the line of human occupation of northern North America goes from the cavemen to Indians to pilgrims, and that's that, right? You had the cavemen, the Paleo Indians, and you had the Indians, right, which were the Shawnee, and then the pilgrims, the Europeans, Daniel Boone, that's it. Yet evidence to the contrary keeps piling up. In our state, there are signs that the region was visited in ancient times by the Chinese, the Norse Vikings, the Celts, which I've even heard the Celts are African. So you had the Chinese, Norse Vikings, the Celts, the Welsh, ancient Egyptians, and also extraterrestrial, so ETs, right? Aliens. Chinese, the Vikings, the Celts, the Welsh, and ancient Egyptians. Plus there was the, New Amsterdam, New Netherlands, New Sweden, New France, the Spanish conquistadors, the English colonists. So you had the Dutch, the Portuguese, the Spanish, the French, the English. There once existed people in Kentucky whose description defies all known frames of references, including a race of red-haired giants who inhabited this land before the people we now called Native Americans. So before the Native Americans, supposedly you have these red-haired giants, right? 6, 7 feet tall, and they have red hair. Who are these red-haired giants? Where they come? Are these? They're not Neanderthals. They got different skull structures. You can tell a Neanderthal. So they used to be Irish people that was fucking 6 feet tall. Are they? Those the Celts? Are they the Welsh? Right? I heard that the Celts were. I thought the Celts were Irish. But there is talk that they had come from Africa. So the amount of unexplainable artifacts that fly in the face of everything we think we know about history would be enough to fill a museum. At least it would be, had not so much of it been suppressed outright or destroyed by careless handling. There are accepted versions of science and history, sometimes created by people promoting their own agenda, sometimes just so embedded in mainstream thinking that it's almost impossible to dislodge them. But there remain these pesky things that won't fit into the official versions, no matter how hard some people may try to force them. And this chapter is about those things. Ancient mysteries, okay? So it's mostly about the first peoples of Kentucky, right? Who are the first peoples? It's an introduction to it. And I'm going to have, the setup is just going to be, I'm going to have 5 questions at the very end, and that'll be the quiz. And then in order to get the answers, you have to watch the beginning of the next video, okay? So yeah, there's a bunch of questions, and I got to make sure I answer them within the video, so that way he won't be completely lost. And I'm gonna tell you about 14 minutes. I'll just ask the questions and then just cut it off. Okay. So the prehistoric impact craters. I think I've got a pretty decent introduction going on so far. There's some things I wrote down actually. I will mix. I will read the first page, and that way I get into it, and then kind of give an overview. Probably give more of an overview in the next video. Alright, so prehistoric impact craters. There once was a time when people wondered why the Earth isn't covered with meteor impact craters, since the moon is, right? The moon's got all these meteors just nailing into it, so what's going on? And usually the atmosphere, right? They burn out over on it. Over 150 such impacts on our planet have been documented, and there could be countless more hidden yet unknown. It seems like a good darn question to ask at the time. We know that the Earth is covered with them. They're just harder to notice because our planet's dense vegetation, erosion from weather, and incrustation of man-made structures. Over 150 such impacts of our planet have been documented, yet there's more. There's actually 3 notable impact craters in Kentucky. So meteors have fucking ran into the Earth, and they've landed in Kentucky 3 times, okay? So they landed in the Middlesboro Basin. This is the famous of the 3, so huge that the entire town of Middlesboro was actually built inside it. The impact is believed to have occurred less than 310 million years ago. So that was like before the dinosaurs, before Native Americans, before every fucking thing. Middlesboro Basin. There have been numerous stories of poltergeist occurrences in the Cumberland Middlesboro Gap Cave area. Although we don't know of anyone else making a connection between the crater's origin and such activity, will venture that whatever struck the Earth in this spot could be related to paranormal phenomena in the area. A lot of weird paranormal shit that's going on in Kentucky also. So the Big Sink. You'll find this impact site on Big Sink Road in Versailles. It's a giant ring 1 mile diameter, consisted of many sinkholes and cracks, and it took place no more than 445 million years ago. So that was really far ago. Jephthah Knob, located in Shelby County, almost equidistant between Lexington and Louisville. This crater was originally misidentified as a cryptovolcanic structure, one that mainstream science cannot explain. It's said by some to have been discovered in 1887, although it's already long since been explored by Native Americans. According to some locals, it's said to be haunted or to have a spooky feeling associated with it. Jephthah, incidentally, is a Hebrew word meaning set free. So that's interesting. There's some fucking meteors, right, crashed into Kentucky. This next one is going to be, well, this next one's ridiculous, I think, actually. This next one talks about footprints left a lasting impression. Right? They're like, look at these weird-ass footprints. Who made these footprints? Well, it looks fucking made up. It looks like somebody just fucking drew these weird-ass fucking misshapen toes and different sized toes and shit. So I discount that evidence immediately, right? So next page, page 16. Roman riches in Kentucky. This is an interesting piece of evidence because archaeology, you got pieces of pottery, arrowheads, how far it's dug in the dirt. So you have all these different ways of how to study, you know, where we came from and where these ancient peoples came from, right? There's lots of different ways. Archaeology, they find little artifacts and they're able to make big fucking conclusions with them. So we had found some Roman coins that was on underneath the Sherman Minton Bridge in Louisville. So 1963, underneath the Sherman Minton Bridge, you have Roman coins, and there was dated like from really far, circa 268 A.D. and Emperor Claudius is the second's time. So 268 A.D. Why do we have these old ass fucking coins that's underneath the Sherman Minton Bridge? When was the Sherman Minton Bridge? It says construction on it, 1963. So that's when they found it, right? 50 years ago. Why'd they find it? We know what the fuck is up with that, or what the heck is up with that? I guess trying to make it family friendly, right? Okay, so some years after the Louisville find, a man discovered Roman coins in a cave in Breathitt County. Interesting, these coins were from the same general time period as the ones dug up in 1963, known as Antonina coins. Red River Gorge area in Powell County is rampant with unexplained pictographic art and carving. Some of them have been declared at one time or another to be seemingly of Roman origin. So Romans, we got some Roman influence here in the bluegrass. Why is that? I am suspect about the Roman coins that's off the coast of the river, because that could just been a shipwreck with somebody with some old Roman coins, right? That didn't necessarily have to mean that they were over here at like 500 AD or so. But it is a possibility. As a scientist, you always leave open the option that things can change, but you also conclude what you believe to be true. There are some Israeli coins, some Hebrew coins, and they said that they came from the Jewish revolt against Rome in AD 132. So again, you got some Roman-ish type coins. A man in Clay City found a strange coin in his hog pen located in a field alongside Route 15. Clay City, I think, is by Skippakittiki. So by the Bar Kokhba Rebellion. The Bar Kokhba Rebellion. So there's coming up to the more giants of Kentucky and cave mummies. Okay, so not only are we finding like these, you know, all these Roman coins and all these different the Vikings and all this other shit, all this other stuff, we're finding giants, right? Tall ass giants with red hair, tall butt giants with red hair, cave mummies. So we're finding mummies, we're finding giants, you know, we're finding lots of weird stuff just scattered throughout everywhere. So I just want to in Kentucky, like, they want to pretend like it was just a happy hunting ground, but my God, there was like just so much shit. There's so many Native Americans that were here in Kentucky. How many Native Americans there was? Okay, so Kentucky becomes a state June 1st, 1792. That's when it becomes a state, in 1792. I want to mention the time periods too. In my world, there's only 4 time periods. Okay, you got the postmodern age, which is after 2000. You got the modern age, which is the 1800s and the 1900s. You got the historic age, 1600s to 1700s. And then you got the prehistory age, which I don't like that term. It's a little racialist, but there's just such a huge block between the 1500s and 13,000 BC. Okay, and the reason why I think that's an important distinction is because the historic period, you have it seems like there's a gap. If you can write the history of the archaeology, I think if you can write a good history of the 1600s, 1700s of what happened here in Kentucky, then the archaeology that we're finding at all these digs throughout Kentucky would be that much easier. So the 16 and 1700s, I think we should actually analyze more so we can actually, you know, find out. But all the reported Indians that have been in the state, you have the Shawnee, Cherokee, Chickasaw, Yuchi, Mazopalia, Wyandotte, Mingo, Seneca, Iroquois, Chippewa, Delaware, Lenape, Miami, Yamacraw, Mazopalia. I actually said that twice. So the Eel River, I guess there's Eel River Indians, the Haudenosaunee, Kaskaskia, the Kickapoo, Ottawa, Piankeshaw, Potawatomi, the Wee, Tutelo, Illinois, Lanapoto, Creek, Muskegee, Ojibwa, Hanias, Antcaranos, Outagamie, Iskosogos, and then Togenhas. So those last ones are actually harder to pronounce, but all those Native Americans that I just mentioned were here in Kentucky. And that's actually your first question, okay, because it's after 14 minutes. So I'm just going to read them off. Name at least 7 of the 38 plus Native American tribes who claimed Kentucky as their Dark and Bloody Bluegrass home in 1792. Who did the Shawnee consider their grandfathers and the source for all Algonquin tribes? Name 4 famous Shawnee chiefs out of 7. What year did France lose their mainland occupied territory in modern day continental America? And then name 4 out of the 9 fields of science it tries to figure out where did we all come from. Those are the questions, okay? So rewind them and get them again, or just look in the description for them.